we are going to talk about the 11 reasons that you should never weigh yourself. I've had a nutritional practice for over 30 years, and I've dealt with a lot of people that want to lose weight. And I'm telling you, if they hyper-focus on looking at their weight every single day, the amount of frustration or discouragement that's going to happen because your weight's going to fluctuate up and down, or actually nothing might change through the week, is going to spike your cortisol, and that stress alone will prevent you from losing weight. I've seen it over and over and over. I mean, just think about what's normal for an average person. The most that someone can lose if they're on some diet per week is between 1 and 2 pounds. If you have a really good metabolism, it's 2 pounds. If you're an average person, especially as you're getting older, it might be 1 pound. And so think about that. How much weight can you lose every single day? It's very similar to investing in the stock market. You're watching your stocks every single hour, hoping to get rich, and it comes up and down, up and down, up. You're going to be just very frustrated. There's a much better measurement to know that you're really losing fat. I'm going to show you that. But now let's talk about why you shouldn't weigh yourself. Okay, number one, water weight. When you start losing weight, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to lose water weight. You know, the ideal goal is to lose this right here. Not necessarily water weight unless you have edema or swelling. But your liver is a fluid-filled sac, this stored sugar called glycogen that comes with a lot of extra fat. In other words, 300 grams of glycogen, that's that stored sugar, is literally holding a lot of water with that. When you start on a weight loss program, you're going to dump the fluid and you're going to be very excited because, wow, I lost 3.5 pounds the first day or two. In fact, you might lose a lot of water weight depending on how much fluid retention you have. I've had people lose between 7 and 11 pounds in just 2 days because they were just waterlogged in their ankles and their body. And so that's just one thing to look at, because here you lost all the weight and then it stops. And then you're like, oh my gosh, my weight loss program stopped working. No, you just got rid of the fluid. Another variable that you need to consider is the salt. You go out to dinner, have something salty. You come home, eat something salty. You eat something with monosodium glutamate, which is a lot of hidden sodium. You're going to just gain 1 or 2 pounds. I'm not just talking about the salt causing you to drink more water. I'm talking about just having more salt and retaining fluid. We consume a lot of salt, and that's going to cause this up and down roller coaster. And I'm not recommending avoiding salt. Just realize it's going to cause a fluctuation, especially if you're consuming sugar with the salt. That's like going to be like a turbo roller coaster. And also certain medications have a lot of hidden sodium as well. People don't realize. Let's talk about hormones. If a female goes through their menstrual cycle, well, it's usually like a few days before. They can gain between 3 to 7 pounds of fluid because of the fluctuation of estrogen, okay? So that's another factor to take in consideration. Also, you have another hormone that really messes with your fluids, and that's cortisol. Cortisol retains sodium and causes the loss of potassium. And so now we're losing all this potassium and we gain the sodium, and then we retain fluid just from the stress. It's another factor. I want to mention the location of fat because this is a little interesting side note. The worst fat you can have is the visceral fat around the body. One type of visceral fat, which is technically not visceral fat, but it's called epicardial fat, fat around the heart. That is one of the best predictors of heart attacks of anything. And people don't even talk about it, but it's a very important test to get if you're concerned about heart attacks, called epicardial fat. And then you have fat on the back of your tongue, which could cause you to have sleep apnea. And then you also have another fat that goes inside the organs, like the pancreas, and messes with the function of the pancreas. The fat can go in the liver and really mess up the function of the liver. And some people hold more fat around the hips and the thighs, which, by the way, is not visceral fat. It's actually a non-dangerous fat, and it's actually a fat that's really good if someone is pregnant because there's high levels of omega-3 fats, DHA, for that baby. Is if you're on a weight loss program and you see zero weight loss, what could be happening is you're losing the epicardial fat first, and you're losing the fat off your liver and your pancreas, which is not going to show up on the scale. And so you're going to take it as a loss when in fact, it's actually working. You just have to give it more time, because the whole concept is to not lose weight to get healthy. It's to get healthy, then lose the weight. Very important corrected sequence of events. And as you start getting healthy, it might not show up in weight loss because you can't really see what's happening deep in the organs. But one thing I do want to mention, the fat in the liver and the pancreas and the heart, that type of fat can come off very quickly. You can lose liver fat within days or weeks, and I'm going to show you how and what's behind that. So that's the good news. All right, next one is muscle loss or muscle gain. I've seen people go on a prolonged fast, and then they go on a low-calorie diet, and they get really thin, and you can see they lose their muscle. That is not healthy. And what's happening is they're losing the tissue that is really part of their metabolism. So with the muscle loss, it comes with a lot of negative things. And another thing that's connected to that, I'm going to come right down to Ozempic, number 8. Yes, people lose weight with Ozempic, but as soon as they get off Ozempic, they gain virtually almost all of it back. Okay, so now they're dependent on it. But check this out. 20 to 40% of that weight loss that they lose with Ozempic is muscle loss. That's crazy. So that to me is not healthy. I want to mention muscle gain. When someone starts a healthy eating program and they're adding exercise and they're adding weight training and they're building more muscle, what's going to happen to that scale? Well, it's going to either go up because you're going to gain muscle, because if we compare muscle to fat, muscle's a little heavier. And so either you're going to see an increase of weight or a net zero weight loss, because again, the scale doesn't really give you those details. So it can be very frustrating to people if they don't understand they're gaining muscle, and that is a good thing. And that's a necessary thing as well. Let's go to number 6. Mixed edema. What the heck is mixed edema? Mixed edema is a type of fat that you'll see with a hypothyroid case. It's not actually water or edema necessarily, and it's not actual fat. It's this spongy fat that's all over. It's not even fat. It's mixed edema, and you can't get rid of this with regular diets or exercise. You have to fix the thyroid. Okay. So if you have a Hashimoto's condition where it's an autoimmune, then that requires a different protocol than a non-autoimmune case. I will put some links down below of what to do if you have that, but I just wanted to bring that up. If you're trying to lose this and you're looking at the scale and you don't see anything on the scale, now we know why. It's the thyroid. So there's a lot of variables involving losing weight. And then we get to sleep. If you have crappy sleep just for 1 week, you actually develop insulin resistance, almost like a pre-diabetic situation, just from not sleeping. People that don't sleep, they get the munchies, they snack more, they get more visceral fat, they have lower testosterone. That means they have a less chance of developing muscles. When you don't sleep, your stress goes up, the cortisol goes up. I had a lady come in to see me long ago at the gym, on a diet, working hard for an entire year, and basically only lost 1 or 2 pounds for the entire year. You talk about frustration, right? And she's like looking at the scale, it's not happening, but she kind of just stuck it out. Well, guess what? She wasn't sleeping. All I did was fix her sleep. And bam, she started losing weight. So the relationship between lack of sleep and stress is huge. Number 8, we've already talked about that. Number 9 is micro damage from exercise. If you overtrain, or even if you, let's say you exercise, but you really are out of shape and you start exercising, you're going to create a lot of muscle breakdown and kind of micro trauma, which is part of the process of exercise. And you're going to get edema from that. You're going to get swelling, which means your weight will go up after you exercise. And so you're going to be like, wow, I just worked out. I should be losing weight, right? All the benefit of exercise happens like 48 hours or 72 hours after you exercise while you're recovering when you're sleeping. So you might actually even gain weight after you work out. So that's another variable. Then, of course, you have medications, a very underappreciated area that a lot of people are just gaining a lot of weight with the side effect of medication, and also a lot of fluid retention from calcium channel blockers, even type 2 diabetes medications. Number 11, constipation. That's another one. I had a lady come in. She was very obese, and she wanted to lose a lot of weight. But she has constipation. I'm talking, she goes like once a month, and I'm not kidding. And I said, listen, we need to focus on your constipation. She goes, no, I just want to lose the weight. I said, it's not going to work. You're full of, and I didn't say what she was full of, but she was basically full of waste, and you got to fix that first. People that are eating all this fiber because they tell you that fiber will help you lose weight, and the fiber is just retaining fluid in their gut and they get constipated. You can gain a lot of weight on fiber just alone, especially if it's the soluble corn fiber or the polydextrose. It's a synthetic fiber that they're telling people to consume for weight loss, thinking it's low calories, but it's a sponge that's filling up with fluid in your gut, and it's all sluggish. Now let's go into a much better way to determine if you're losing fat, and also the secret to being able to lose as much weight as you want. A much better, more accurate way to know that you're losing visceral fat is the waist to height ratio measurement. All you have to do is get a tape measure around your waist, right at the level of the belly button, and track that. Not every day, maybe every other day. And just keep looking at that in relationship to your height, which is not going to change. And you want that to be below 0.5. So in other words, you want your waist to be less than half of your height, okay? And as it starts to go down, you can rest assured that you're losing visceral fat. So a lot of the visceral fat is in your midsection, and losing that is the most important thing for your health that you can do. Because you have to realize that fat is actually a survival mechanism. Your body does not like to get rid of the fat. And this is why I recommend you actually even shift your goal to just focus on getting healthy, because you can lose a lot more with that goal in mind. One of the best biomarkers to focus on as well is the fasting insulin. Not even blood sugar. Maybe not even A1C, which is another test that measures an average of 3 months of blood sugar. Because at the very beginning of having insulin resistance, it might not be severe. And so insulin is coming in as fast as you're eating that sugar and pulling it out. And you keep checking your blood sugar, and it's normal despite eating a lot of sugar. So it's not the best test. And so there's a much better test, and it's insulin. But doctors never check it. I like to keep it below 5. Insulin is the hormone that causes you to keep storing fat. So one function is the storage of fat, but also it actually prevents the burning of fat. It's like the big brake that tells the liver to stop making sugar. This next point is super interesting, so hang with me because this really relates to diabetics. 80% of the blood sugar in a type 2 diabetic person is coming from their own body. The liver is making tons of sugar. There's so much insulin resistance in the liver, it doesn't work anymore. So then the pancreas has to go crazy and pump out all this extra insulin. And this is why we want to check this fasting insulin to see if that's happening. Now, I'm going to show you how to correct it. It's very easy and it's reversible. But unfortunately, doctors don't look at that. Instead, they treat or manage that disease with drugs, but they don't go into the diet. They don't talk about the root cause. But this is why when a type 2 diabetic wakes up in the morning, they have like high sugar. Now, they didn't even eat any sugar last night or the day before, and then they fast all night long, yet they wake up with this high sugar. What's going on? The liver is making a ton of sugar. It's not coming from the diet. It's being converted from other things. Okay, pretty wild. I want to just mention this number 3 here, appetite. Appetite is one of the best simple ways to know that you are burning fat and it's working. Okay, way more than weight, way more than anything else, it's the appetite. Why? When you go from one meal to the next, especially if you're fasting, and let's say you're fasting for 18 hours, and you're still not hungry after 18 hours, like, why? You haven't eaten. Well, you are eating. You're eating this. You're eating your fat. So when you can go longer between meals without an appetite, it means that you're finally in fat burning, okay? And that is one of the best indicators to know if you're in fat burning because you're not hungry. If you can't go very long without getting hungry, that means you are not burning fat and you haven't converted your body into burning fat because of several reasons, which we're going to get into. Number 4 is very, very important. It's a very simple concept, but realize this. All it takes is just a tiny bit of carbohydrates, a little bit of bread or a little bit of pasta or half a glass of wine to raise insulin for a good amount of time. So if you're trying to get in fat burning, we call that ketosis, and you consume a tiny bit of carb, in your mind, you might think, well, that's not that much. I'll just go right into fat burning maybe in an hour or two. No, it could take 24 to 48 hours before you're back in there because it takes a longer process to convert and get into fat burning. And it's easy to pop yourself out. And this is important to know because if every other day you're having a cheat day or having a little bit of a carb, that could be the reason why that scale is not moving at all. All right, number 5. This is the secret to losing as much weight as you want. This is a root cause, insulin resistance. It's the root cause behind type 2 diabetes, a fatty liver, obesity, resistant weight where you plateau and you just can't seem to budge down below a certain number, high blood pressure, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and a lot of other conditions. So your weight is the tip of the iceberg. Insulin resistance is the iceberg. So how do you fix insulin resistance? You bring your sugars down to as close to 0 as possible. You bring your hidden sugars down as close to 0 as possible. That's the starches. That's the bread, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits. That's not sugar. That's a starch. But really it's sugar because it's easily broken down into sugar. So these two right here will keep your insulin high, and that actually causes insulin resistance. And then we have seed oils. Seed oils can really invade into the membranes in your body and cause insulin resistance. And these 3 ingredients are the most common ingredients in all junk foods. So of course we're giving up junk foods. Having a fatty liver can also cause insulin resistance. Next one is decreased inflammation in the body because that can also cause insulin resistance. And that's usually because of the seed oils. So replace that with omega-3 fatty acids, fish oils, cod liver oil, fish, sardines, shellfish. Very important. Get as much sleep as you can. I'll put a link down below if you're having problems sleeping. I'll tell you exactly what to do. We want to keep the stress as low as possible. Long walks, avoid toxic people. Getting good amounts of sleep will keep your stress lower, okay? And then exercise will help too. This next one is very interesting because post-meal exercise, going for a walk or even going to the gym after you eat can literally bring insulin resistance way down. You can correct it very, very fast. And when you're walking, you're burning up all this extra sugar that your liver is producing, especially if you're diabetic. Stop snacking. It's the snacking that raises insulin, that contributes to this, even if it's healthy foods. So intermittent fasting is very important. That's why I always recommend like 2 meals a day, no snacks, or even 1 meal a day if you really want to lose weight. Berberine works similar to metformin, but without the side effects. So berberine is a good herb to take to help insulin resistance. Magnesium, vitamin D, and B1 are the 3 nutrients that will also greatly improve this situation. I hope I now convinced you not to focus on that weight loss scale every day, okay? But now the question is, how did I put all this together? The devil's in the details. And for that information, you should watch this video right here on exactly how to do this program.